Welcome to What's Cooking with the Cookware and Bakeware Alliance. The CBA supplies the industry with standards, connections, and solutions. This podcast features stories from our members and partners. Our goal is to share resources and information across the industry for consumers, retailers, manufacturers, and more. To learn more about becoming a member of the CBA, visit cookwareandbakeware.org.
Welcome to What's Cooking with the CBA. Our podcast series has a special feature where we focus on our members. Our members are the best part of why we are who we are, and we believe so much in the saying stronger together. This special series celebrates our members, their contributions to the industry, the community, and how they're always dedicated to creating safe consumer products. Today, we're also talking to someone about making beautiful consumer products. Our members are the industry leaders, and I'm so happy to be joined today by Vanessa Peterson, Global Color Styling Lead for Consumer Products at PPG. Welcome, Vanessa.
Hi, Fran. Thank you so much for having us or having me. I'm very excited to be here.
I'm so excited to have you here. This is one of my favorite topics. You have been so wonderful to showcase the color of the year when it's launched each year at our fall meeting. And we're adding this podcast this year to talk more about it. And it's always so interesting, the whole presentation. There's so much that goes into it. So can you tell me a little bit first about how do you get to the color of the year, and like how many people are involved and what does it take?
Yeah, well, I can start off by saying this is my favorite presentation to give annually. I think color in general, I just get very excited about because when I first started, I didn't even know how much input a color can have on someone's life or a company's life or branding. So just the whole process of even figuring out color palettes or a color of the year is so intriguing to me. And I'm so excited that for the past 13 years, I've been able to be part of that process for PPG. But it's such an extensive process and there's so many people involved. And the one thing I love about PPG and how PPG does it specifically is that we work with multiple business units. So it's not just an architecture division, it's not just automotive. We are working with not only architecture, not only automotive, but consumer products, aerospace, and many other different business units under the industrial coatings umbrella. So we're bringing all of that information together. We're bringing not only specifics of like what colors and what technologies we know are selling well, but also it's a global team. So we now have all this information about like regional and global trends. So it's like what's happening socially in our areas, what's happening economically, what's happening even politically, what is happening around the world that's driving people into a state of mind or even into like an emotional state that's really going to make them really geared towards choosing certain colors, you know? So we take all of that information to account and it's usually about a week-long process in person. But even before that, it's months of research, months of discussions, and we take all of that information. We get together in a remote location. Last year, we got to go to Paris, France, which I'm not complaining about. It was a great time. And we brought all of that to the table and we were able to put together these beautiful palettes, this beautiful color of the year, and really bring to life a story that not only was cohesive for what we were trying to tell our consumers, but also fit in with what we feel like is going to be happening globally within the next coming years to make sure that these colors really have a strength in the industry and really give our clients and our consumers the like confidence to know that these are colors that they can put their trust in and actually see on their products in the future. So it really is a grand process, but it's really exciting at the same time.
I love this, Vanessa, because I've been in cookware, I've been in housewares for 30 years. And when you're in product, we have to think about safety first, right? So you go, I used to say to other product managers, it's safety, safety, safety. PPG brings color and fashion to product and accounts for the safety already. So it's like we can just use these coatings and these beautiful colors. And I loved in the presentation for those, if you get a chance, contact Vanessa and ask her to see the presentation. Could you show actual panels of how these colors translate to consumer products? So you bridge this gap that we've just never had, where we can have beautiful color and fashion and safety at the same time. So I love that about this what you do with this process. So
Mhm.
without further ado, why don't we jump into what the theme is for this year and the color of the year?
Yeah, so last year we really spoke about this idea of kinetic, which was our overarching theme. And it was really much about like this journey and going together and forward fasting and having to adapt to like certain different things that were hitting us all at the same time and how you kind of grow from that. And this year, what we found out is that people are a little bit more self-aware. They're a little bit more self-conscious. They're a little bit okay with being a little bit selfish in the way that they're going on their own journeys. They're figuring out these their own path in life and really the things that are like affecting them. How are they taking them in? How is that benefiting them not only emotionally but mentally and physically as well? So we saw this idea of like we went from kinetic, we went from this fast-moving, adaptable experience to now this very self-journeying experience of going parallel through these different ventures and creating one's own journey, really side by side with all the different elements around the world that are affecting this individual and really kind of how they strive to create that perfect sense for themselves. So we entitled our overarching theme for this year for 2026 parallels because we really saw that visual representation of moving in that side by side journey for an individual to really create and manifest their own world. And because of that, what we felt really lent itself well to that overarching theme was our color of the year that was selected, which is entitled Secret Safari, which kind of plays on the idea of that self-expression and self-exploratory journey, going on a journey through a safari, you know? And it's a very beautiful color because it's one of those colors that it kind of makes you think, is it green or is it a yellow? And because it gives you that idea of trying to figure out what exactly it is, it almost in that shows you its versatility of how it can be used worldwide on so many different products because it's both calming and it's both energizing. And it kind of has that duality to it where it can kind of fit whether you're looking at a cookware product or a kitchen appliance or even like the color of your kitchen. It kind of lends itself throughout any of those options. So it's a very exciting for us to showcase that for our color of the year, Secret Safari.
And I get to, people can't see this as a podcast, but I'm looking at it as we talk. And that's before you even said it, that's exactly what I thought. I said, how calming, but yet it makes me like energized. Like I want to get up and do something. So now you make me think I might paint my office that color. But it's really a beautiful, beautiful color. And you can see how that name, the color itself parallels to parallel. And what you're talking about, so many people are seeing this. And I love the idea of being a secret safari because it's a personal journey you're on, right?
Mhm.
So I know from past presentations, and once you have that main theme, then there's individual themes within parallels. So what this year can we expect from parallels?
So this year we did something different than we did in past years. We used to have four different micro trends that we would have under the Parallels umbrella. And the reason we do micro trends is to make sure that we're hitting all the various trends that we're seeing because there are a vast amount of trends. So it's taking all that information and making sure that we're giving a cohesive story to our consumers and making sure additionally to that that they can find their brand within these micro stories. So this year instead of four, we downsized it to three because we saw a lot of crossover for the first time. A lot of different drivers and influences and aesthetics that we'll talk about in coming up that really shifted almost onto each other. So it was really simple this year for us to kind of be on this research together where for the first time when we were presenting all of our information, there was so much crossover that these three micro trends kind of brought themselves to life. So under the Parallels umbrella, we have authentic, visionary, and expressive, which all kind of have a life of their own, but all realistically fit into that idea of that parallel and that journey that a consumer is on.
That's incredible. I love the three words too, because it again, and I know this is intentional because you guys are put together such an amazing program, but it fits that secret safari we're all on, those three.
Mhm.
So can you talk about authentic?
Yeah, so I think one thing, and I love to talk to our clients about this when I present to it, and one of the most common things that I believe a lot of people have been experienced is that I think we can all agree it's been a couple chaotic years. I think we all kind of feel this weight of just, everything happening globally. And I think one of the biggest things that are kind of driving why we went into this idea of authentic is there's always this discussion about nostalgia and things from the past that brought us comfort. And we see a lot of these trends starting to come out that all have to do with things of the past and how we bring them into a new age. So, one of the biggest three things that we saw when we were coming up with the authentic micro trend, that story, was that people really are still looking at that idea about sustainability as they should. So, the way it shifted for the authentic and what we're seeing now is that people are really fighting against that idea of like the fast fashion, the fast furniture industry. They're realizing that things are not made well anymore. They're made to last you maybe a year. So thrifting has gone up significantly, secondhand consignment shopping, and you're seeing that affect trends because now things are kind of going back to that millennial grandma, that grandma chic, where things are actually becoming a little bit more sustainably sourced. They're not going after that fast fashion or those fast furniture pieces. And then that kind of lends itself also to the idea of this increased need or this kind of unavoidance of this idea of longevity. People are living longer, they're looking younger, they're taking care of themselves. 50 is the new 20. And there's this big shift of social impact where you're just seeing this older crowd really start to take over the trends. They're becoming the biggest consumers. They're really taking care of their health. So we have to also acknowledge that a lot of that is bringing that nostalgia aspect into the newer trends. And then the biggest thing is people are really wanting community again. I think from like post-pandemic and even pandemic, where there was this idea of isolation and self and just really kind of wanting to be alone. Now people are like, we don't want to be alone anymore. We kind of want community. So you're seeing a lot of community activities really start to flourish. I think a really great example of that is the pickleball trend. Everybody's getting out there and playing pickleball together, and it's just causing this idea of being with community again. So, just to kind of sum up those three drivers, that's what's kicking off like the influence behind authentic. So, you have nostalgia, as I mentioned, that idea of familiarity, things that are like iconic in design, things that feel very crafted, very much like artisan spirit. Those are really what's driving it. So, when you look at the aesthetic behind the authentic brand, it's very classic. It's very much about those premium materials, those reassuring colors, things that feel like exquisitely executed. And more, I think the key word behind this is that it's timeless and it feels crafted. Again, as I mentioned, we're going from minimal to maximalist. We're going from factory made to handcrafted, from like stationary and generic to beautiful and just like raw luxury. So it's really, really an overall, like, just very visually pleasing and comforting. Like I always talk about it, like it's like smelling grandma's cookie when you go over. It's just one of those micro trends that just makes you feel good.
I love that. And one of my favorite parts, I can see this now that I've seen the palette, but now you take all those parts of the microtrend and you put it into a color palette. And you even go one step further. You take that color palette and you talk about its relevancy to kitchenware and bakeware. So can you talk about the color palette and then how it fits into the industry?
Yeah, so the most important part for us, especially outside of, creating the story, is making sure that we obviously have a color palette that defends and that really showcases all of that information that we brought to the table. So our biggest intention behind creating a color palette is that without us being able to speak or say anything, the client automatically feels everything that we try to speak about behind the influences and the drivers and the aesthetic behind each one of our micro trends. So specifically for authentic, we kind of went in that route. So I know you all are not able to see it right now, but hopefully when I was speaking about those different influences, you kind of got a gist of what that palette might look like. So it's really a palette that has a lot of anchors to those vintage trio colors, those deep red browns, those deep reds, and those deep green colors. Those automatically speak vintage to us, and we love the comfort that those color ranges bring. And then we also wanted to make sure we brought in some warmer tones, like a soft orange and also some soft neutral colors as well. It's a beigey pink and like a very brown beige color that was very calming and serene. And then we obviously have our color of the year, Secret Safari there, adding in this little vintage hint of this green, and then really bringing and like finalizing that with our neutral color. So like a neutral blue gray, as well as some neutralized, warmer, softer pastels as well. So you can kind of see we really went for those warmer sides with a dash of cooler neutrals to kind of bring together that whole collection. So now the exciting thing is when we're able to take those palettes and now actually relate them to the products that we create. So specifically for consumer products and the kitchenware industry, we really wanted to create something that not only felt durable, obviously felt like you can bring it into any setting in your home, but we wanted to set off the trends that we're really talking about, bringing that nostalgic flair to these kitchen and industrial bakeware products. So it's really creating those finishes that we thought were very fitting. So we did a lot of splatter effects, which is really exciting. We did some metallics and like some beautiful mixes of different particle sizes and densities to really create these really unique type of items for the KIB marketplace. And really, again, being able to showcase how a driver, an influence, and an aesthetic can really lend itself to actual technical coatings that go on products. So it's a whole beautiful process for our clients to see from like start to finish, how we really not only are choosing colors that we think are fitting for the story, but also that can transfer to a product that can go out into the marketplace the next day. So we have a full range focus when we create these color palettes and then all of its way into production.
That's incredible. I also love authentic and authenticity. You're right. It's a big topic right now. And the way you describe the color palette, it feels like the calming side of Secret Safari, like we're catching our breath from all that's been going on. It's incredible. I'm excited to talk about Visionary because this was my favorite palette. I love them all, but this was like, I need everything in this. So can you talk a bit about Visionary?
Yeah, and I love that you found like you found fun or that Visionary was like your favorite because for me it's our most trendiest, it's our most like forward thinking palette and collection that we have because that's kind of what the drivers behind it were. It's really also this discussion about like an individual kind of having to live this dual life, you know? We're walking into this idea of we're kind of having to protect a lot of things around us. We're having to adapt quickly to a lot of things around us. And we're trying to set off new ways of being as well that are different than how we've done things in years past. Visionary is going to have a way more technical and futuristic appeal to it because there's certain things we can't ignore that we see happening in the world. So it's really, again, talking about when I mention duality, it's an individual's reaction to those two things. It's like, do I go out into the world and take all this on? Or do I kind of allow myself to retreat a little bit and create a new sense of sanctuary that allows me to be part of this world, but also not just be like taken over it by so allows you to not be taken over by it. So I think that's one of the really great things about duality. So as I mentioned there, some of the drivers behind Visionary is, as I mentioned, that idea of protection. I think as you mentioned with authentic as well, and this is again what I mean where there was a lot of crossovers, there's so much hope happening globally and a lot of instability that people are really concerned about their personal security. So a lot of new trends are gearing towards that direction. So even if it's even down to like, is my phone really listening to me? Is that little like that little AI voice that I talk to every day, are they storing my information? Like where and how are we proceeding with things? Can I really trust the certain AI technologies that are coming our way? So it's gearing up for that idea of like how do we protect ourselves? How do we put things in place? But also realizing the helpfulness behind some of these items. But again, walking with caution and making sure that you're protected. And that lends itself to the next big trend hitting us, which is our autonomous things. You might have a car picking you up that's completely self-driving, and it's like, do I trust this? Do I get into this? And then but it's also like, wow, this is where we are in the world. Like, I could potentially have a robot who helps me in my house. Can you imagine a robot that that folds your laundry for you and puts it away? Like, wow, how great. But then also you're like, there's a robot in my house. I don't know how I feel about this. And again, so that also lends itself to that idea of these bespoke styles, where, as I mentioned with authentic, people are really wanting things to be self-made and really an attention to detail that hasn't been there before. So you kind of see how these drivers are forcing an individual into something that's a little bit more like cautionary, but also kind of exciting because it's like we're breaking into new eras that we've never experienced before. So again, what starts to happen with that influence on the consumer is they're like, okay, like maybe it's time to create my own sense of sanctuary. Maybe my own sense of sanctuary is like something that involves like an AI experiential room where I can go in and be surrounded by a thunderstorm that's not natural at all, but makes me feel good inside. Or maybe it's I just want to get under my blanket and listen to some calming music. So it's giving that duality of what sanctuary spaces look like for the individual. We're also talking about that idea of space versus spaces. You have this very big influence of outer galactic space with all these billionaires like race for space and who's going to get the first hotel in space. And then you're actually like, that's great and all. And I love that we're getting to this part of our advancement, but can I also just sit in my room and enjoy like my starlights at the same time as well? And then it goes into like, how does that affect our urban geometry? How does that affect cityscapes around us and the homes that we live in? And now the integration of all this technology with just actually having a house that's your space. And then that also affects our future health too. I think now you can buy so many products that will tell you more than an actual doctor will tell you. You have rings that tell you your blood pressure, your heartbeat. It tells you like when certain things are happening to your body, and we've never had those things before. So now it's again this adaptability to like all this duality in your life of like this digital world now coming together with your physical world, combining themselves together. And how do we get ready for all of that? So when you look at the aesthetic behind it, we're really keeping to that duality purpose. You have a light and you have a dark side. And the dark side doesn't necessarily mean that it's bad, and the light side doesn't necessarily mean that it's good, but you're seeing the contrast between the two, and you're seeing how the two can immerse within themselves. And the first one is very dark, it's very monochromatic, it's very captivating, and it's very much about that exploring the deep and immersive part of this collection. And then you have intangible on the other side that's a lot lighter, it's a lot airier, but again it's just showcasing the two sides to this equation that really emphasize that idea of like what the world that we're going into will really look like.
I love that you said about light and dark, because you can't have light without shadow and you can't have shadow without light. And one isn't better than the other. They just are, right?
Yeah.
And it's starting to feel like I can see the connectedness in this path from now authentic to visionary. Can you talk about the color palette and again, how that's going to come into the industry?
Yeah, so with the color palette, we really wanted to again play on that idea of lights versus darks, and exactly how you set it up, Fran. I love it. How they work together in a very beautiful way. It's not one against the other. It's not just black and white. It is a very harmonious collection that show how they play very nicely off one another, and you need one. You can't have one without the other almost. So it's really playing on that idea of the ethereal lights and the immersive darks that we really wanted to bring that sense of contrast, that sense of intrigue. So when we were creating it, we have all of our lighter tones on the left-hand side and our darker tones on the right-hand side, and our secret safari straight in the middle to bridge the gap between the two. And we really wanted to bring a group of like fresh light tints. So we have our color that are sandpaper, oyster cracker, cactus blossom, and it's offset by some muted neutrals. So if you can envision it, just think of like an airy, beautiful, dusty pastel collection where it's soft pink, soft yellow, soft greens, but all very much in that neutral space where they're not too contrasted, where it just feels like they're all over the place or that they're too primary. It's very soft and it's very inviting. Where on the flip side, you have where the contrast and those moody darks kick in. So if you can think about a chocolate eclair, chocolate pretzels, or deep blue tones that feel like an obsidian of like ocean, or just even like these cool neutralized grays. It really anchors the whole palette together. So it's a really unique palette, and I think I love it because of how it was set up. I don't think we've ever had a palette before that showcased the light versus the dark, but it's a very well put together palette in my opinion.
That's amazing. And then how do you see this translating in kitchenware?
So for me, I see it where it really emphasized that idea of futuristic design. It's bold, it's innovative, it has like the cutting edge technology behind it. And I think the words that really fit into it when you see it try to shift from a color palette to a consumer product is that you want it to be like sleek, you want it to be dynamic, you want it to have like very vibrant colors. So we really wanted to emphasize that when we were creating the palette specifically, is that it could lend itself to those. So we got to really explore some creative CMF directions with both colors and effects for Visionary. So we have like mixed metallics. We have our color of the year Secret Safari in this collection when we created it for the KIB marketplace. And then we used a lot of our different technologies, both ceramic and powder too. This is the first year that we added a lot of powder technology to the equation as well, to again really showcase like the innovation that we see a lot of these appliances and cookware products going into. So we wanted to make sure we captivated all of that. So again, we wanted to create something that felt forward thinking, that felt like we were pushing the bar, but then also making sure that it's going to be items that a consumer actually wants to bring into their household, because you can get very futuristic and really funky with certain things. And we have the capabilities of really literally going into the stars and creating something that looks like you're holding a piece of the galaxy. But then it's also like, we also have to think about the consumer. Is that what the consumer wants? So some of the times we actually have to like hold ourselves back from going too crazy. But I think that's what this whole thing is about. As I mentioned, it's like the capabilities of what is out there, but also how we create it for a consumer, how we create it for a client, how we create that journey for ourselves. So I think that is really like the whole impression behind the Visionary collection.
That's incredible. And as I started to think about, this all being tied, the parallels all being tied to people going through personal journeys, you have that battle of finding the authenticity, finding who we are, and battling the things you talked about, like the things that happen in the world that tell you what you should be doing or should be, and you're finding your authentic voice. Visionary is you starting that battle of light and dark, that shift to what you can see it being. And I feel like expressive just really opens up the last part of the story. Can you talk about expressive? This is just a fantastic final connection of these three parts.
Yeah, Brandon. I really love the way you see how the whole story unfolds. So that just makes my heart really happy. But yeah, the thing I love about expressive and why it's our final category is exactly kind of how you summed everything up. It's taking in everything that's happening, seeing how the effects are coming onto you. How do we adapt to that? But then ultimately realizing that you have the power to express it exactly how you want to. That there's no holds bar. That hey, I'm allowed to be happy. I'm allowed to be optimistic through all this. And I want to create a world that allows me to do that for better or for worse. So it's really talking about those optimistic visions for the future, that we can create that can be full of wonder and that could be full of possibilities. And I think consumers are taking that back and they're allowing themselves to be like, no, I'm not going to be told that I have to be sad or that I have to be this way. No, I choose the outcome that I want, and I want an outcome that's going to be something that's fun and optimistic, and I need joy back in my life, and it's okay to be happy. So expressive really dives into that. So some of the drivers behind expressive, which are really allowing people to step into that, is again, this is one of those overarching themes throughout our three themes that we talked about, which is AI. And we talked about how AI could be concerning and also how AI could be beneficial. But we're also talking about how AI can be very creative and almost blur the line between like what is art and what is reality. And that does impact color and design. And I think we can really see how like these immersive experiences when you go to museums and you're engulfed in like just AI craziness everywhere, it kind of creates a very joyous experience where you see classical art brought to life, or you have different installations that really engulf you into this really beautiful atmosphere that you would have never been able to experience in years past. And then because of that, it's adding a new sense of wonder, and people are creating art that's now humorous because people want to experience humor. They don't want to take everything so seriously. They want it to de-stress from those everyday emotions. So it's really about humor becoming essential, and individuals really stepping into different things that are going to make them feel happy, even if it's an art installation of a massive three-story panda taking a selfie of itself. It brings joy to the consumer looking at it. So it's really that push into a new idea of escapism. And escapism is another one of those overarching themes that we talked about in all three of the categories. Is really finding those things that are going to manifest a space that you're really happy being part of. So it's whether it's creating a fantasy space or something that feels very dreamlike, it's definitely just, again, creating an atmosphere that really transcends real world anxieties. So it's really that shift that consumers are allowing themselves to do. And when you look at the influences behind why those drivers are so big, have you noticed the resurgence of like surrealism, not only in artwork, but in fashion? Everything's getting whimsical. Everything's getting a little bit more fantasy driven. And it's exciting to see because it's taking us out of this everyday, nonchalant type of gray, black and white genre that we've been living in for a while. The dull beiges are out and the more whimsical colors are in. And it's very much about that idea of like an absolute reality versus a super reality. And also, one of the biggest influences is gaming. People are escaping into a gaming world. It's now one of the biggest worldwide hobbies in the entire world. There's over 2.6 billion gamers worldwide, and it's because they're escaping reality in a fun, innovative way. And it's almost resulted into this idea of kidulting. And I love that word because it feels like it's given adults the freedom to be kid-like again and to be childish, but in a mature way. I mean, I think it's become pretty obvious that people buying Legos the most are adults. And it's a fun, relaxing pastime for them to have fun and to relax and to kick back. The Barbie movie was attended by more adults than it was children. And now you're seeing all of that Transformer items, like kid adults are being children again, and it's bringing them a peace of mind that they need to, which leads to the optimism that people are needing and the excitement that people are needing. And then you see that it creates the aesthetic almost hand in hand. You have a dreamscape aesthetic that brings that AI fantasy to life. It brings the whimsy, it brings this whole idea of this new shift of like just these really fun and immersive experiences. And then you have also the aesthetic of playtime, where your primary colors come into play. It's like going to elementary school, but as an adult. It's very mature, but it's very playful. And you just get immersed in this whole idea of just bringing joy back into the equation. So it might not be everything you put in your house, it may not be your walls, but it's going to be those accented pieces you bring into your space that you look over and you're going to be like, that little teddy bear is singing me a song. I love you. Thank you. So it's just little things like that that just spark joy, that bring joy into your equation. And that's really all expressive is. It's really just letting the consumer let go, have fun, be playful, be childlike, be optimistic for the future.
I I felt like you were describing my family as you went through this. I have a daughter who's a gamer, like a influencer gamer, and
Wow.
a lot of people don't understand them. But I love kidulting. I love the whole part of this. I feel like expressive is about us finally embracing it's okay to be who we are. It's okay. I love that you said we're taught this saying it's okay not to be okay, but it's also okay to be okay while you're
Mhm.
not okay.
Yeah.
And like
Yeah.
and find the joy in the day, play with those Legos. And I love that. And it made me think of my father. I just want to say this. He always said the only difference between children and adult is a loss of imagination.
Yeah.
And this
Wow.
return and this whole this last part of the package is to remind us that keep using the imagination, and that's where it really just brings the whole secret safari of our lives, these secret journeys we're on, back all together. So I'm excited to hear about the color palette for this theme.
So, as you can imagine, the color palette is very playful at first appearance, but it's also designed in very harmonious layers. It's very easy to just pick and choose and be like primary colors for everything, but you also have to think about these are colors, as I've mentioned, that have to go on products. They have to, be within a production line. They have to stand out within stores. So you really want to create something that has a maturity to it while still honoring those primary elemental colors. So we really wanted to create that balance. So we have like really four key pillars when we designed this color palette. And we started off with a lot of our blues. Blues are very calming, they're very playful, they're very collegiate, they're very elementary. Blues lend itself so well to so many different avenues. So having more than one blue in this palette just felt very natural. And then from that, we kind of just tweak those blues to just go a little bit more green and a little bit more strong. So we have a turquoise in there, and then we kind of shift that into like more of our fun red. So we have like a very lively coral in there, and then it sits right next to our secret safari, our color of the year. So you can kind of see how it's a little funky, but again, harmonious at the same time. And then obviously we have to layer that with supporting hues and tones. So we have a lighter green blue, we added a more solid green, and then also a yellow to kind of round out that side as well. And then softening that original bright red coral that we have with something a little bit more deeper, a little bit more mature. So you can kind of see how they have a balance of the colors. And then lastly, we obviously have to add in our series of neutrals in there because neutrals are very grounding for any palette. So we have them, but they're still funky, fun colors. So whether it's a soft gray or a soft lavender or even a soft pink, we wanted to bring in those neutrals and then of course anchoring in the whole thing with at least one dark, because we have to have at least one dark in that palette. So we do have a really, really dark brown that's almost gray to just kind of ground the whole palette, as I said. So again, you have your bright primaries, you have your soft neutrals, you got your tonal mid-range colors, and then grounded by that soft darker color as well. And it was very easy to take all of that and then create colors for products because we had such a variety of different things to choose from. So we were able to create things that were both bold and vibrant and then highly personalized. I think one of the biggest things behind this, as we talked about, it's a very personalized palette. And it's really talking about and reflecting individuals' identities and their creativity. So we wanted to create tangible color panels for the KIB marketplace and the consumer product marketplace that really lend itself to that artistic flair, something that was visually striking and most of all, still very practical in the process. So for the technology behind that, again, we kind of brought in that mix of splatters, but instead of it being tonal, how it wasn't authentic, now we got to be very contrasted, a little bit more bold, putting a little blue over a pink. And then what does that look like? You're like, whoa, I've never seen this in kitchenware before, but it's cool. Maybe we can go with this. And then metallics, again, we got to play with different color shift metallics and how it shifts depending on what light you look at it, which is very fun and exciting. And then we also got to play with a lot of glossy finishes. High gloss has been a big thing coming back into the industry. It's sneaking its way back in. So we're like, what can that look like for kitchenware? Could it be fun? Could it be exciting to see something like that? And then again, just really kind of going in those bolder directions. For our powderware color, we did a bright teal. So we were just like, hey, maybe let's be a really cool drinkware color that people would like to have, something that's a little bit more fun, a little bit more playful. So it really was our intention to bring that fun and that optimism to life through not only the color palette that we chose, but how we actually went about executing the colors for viable technologies for our everyday kitchen and industrial wear products.
It's been amazing to not only hear, but also I got the privilege to see the presentation, how to see we've heard trends before in home, We've seen colors translated in cookware and bakeware, but to see this bridge where you're intentionally thinking about the color trends and how they apply. I also love the idea of like you have spatters in one, which are more common. And then here you were going bold and the blue over the pink. I'm like, okay, that's yes to all of this. To CBA members who were at the fall meeting, you got to see this firsthand. If you're a CBA member and didn't get to see it, you can reach out through the member portal to learn more, as well as reach out to Vanessa through the member directory. But to anyone listening, whether they be a member or otherwise, how can they learn more about the color of the year and how these trends could apply to their consumer products?
Yeah, I think the best way, first and foremost, is to reach out to me or either you for more information. But we also do have our PPG Industrial Coatings blog and our YouTube page that will showcase some really cool, innovative videos about not only how we came up with the color of the year, but also our color of the year video, which is really fun and really exciting to see. I would really encourage you all to go to our YouTube, which is PPG Industrial Coatings, and you'll see all of our information there. We also get to show you guys some behind the scenes of some of our technologies as well. So there's a lot of information and contact for you on there, but also our PPG Industrial Coatings blog as well, which we can send you links to that as well on a later date. But that's going to showcase all of our information and our latest updates, not only on technology, but definitely our color of the year information, which is our exciting stuff, in my opinion.
I love this. And we'll include those links with the blog. So anyone listening, you'll be able to get those links. I so appreciate this, Vanessa. One last question I always have to ask our members, but what for you is either your favorite part of being a CBA member or why you are a CBA member?
Well, one of the things I love the most about CBA and just your guys' intentionality behind how often you guys keep us updated on all of the latest educational content, what's happening around the world, what's happening from a political standpoint that's going to affect the KIB marketplace or, the cookware marketplace. You guys are so informative and you keep us up to date on all that information. And that's just valuable information just to have at the tip, at our fingertips. And you always have those industry updates. And my biggest thing that I love in the chances I've been able to go in person is just the networking opportunities. You guys are phenomenal with keeping people within network and contacting with one another's. And honestly, I just think it's very valuable. And I think it's one of those situations that I love to be part of. And I love that you guys have opened your arms to have me there. But yeah, that's really one of the greatest things or multiple things that I really love about the CBA community.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Vanessa. Well, we appreciate you and all you do for us and how engaged the PPG team is with the CBA. I just big shout out to all of you and thank you. I can't wait to see how this translates in the market, and then I can't wait to see what comes next year. So
I know we're already working on next year. It's never ending, but I love it. So can't wait to show you guys.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much. And with that, I'm going to say to our audience and to our members, make sure to check out the links in this podcast. Make sure to reach out to PPG through the member portal. Just happy cooking, everyone. Thank you so much, and we'll talk soon.
You've been listening to What's Cooking with the Cookware and Bakeware Alliance. For more resources about the cookware and bakeware industry and information about becoming a member, visit our website, cookwareandbakeware.org.